Welcome back to my channel. I have done the Vancouver Canucks and Montreal Canadiens roster predictions, so I thought I would do the Toronto Maple Leafs roster prediction. I have a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey courtesy of my grandpa, who is a mega fan of the team. So without further ado, let's get into the forwards. On my top line, I have Matthew Knies at left wing, Auston Matthews at center, then Matias Maccelli at right wing. As I was doing this roster, the hole of Marner grew bigger and bigger. I was going through and I realized I hadn't put anyone at top line right wing. So he will be missed. I have a Mitch Marner jersey, so this thing is becoming a relic. Now, let's get into the actual line I just said. Auston Matthews, no debate, top line center. Don't think we need to go far into that one. Along with Matthew Knies, he is becoming really good, and he's becoming to be someone who was a steal in the draft that he was taken. As I mentioned, that Marner size hole on their right wing, I have Matias Maccelli right now in there, but honestly, if push comes to shove, that can be interchanged. But Matias Maccelli, he did pretty all right in Utah last season, so I think he deserves top line, at least for now, unless something happens in the season. I'll get him off of there. So it will be interesting to see how the top line does. For my second line, I have Max Domi at left wing, John Tavares as the center, and right wing I have William Nylander. Once again, don't think I really have to talk about John Tavares and William Nylander. They deserve to be there. John Tavares, even though he's aging a little, or he is aged a little bit, he's still pretty good, and for the fact that he took a pay cut to stay in Toronto, it's quite admirable. So, however, the left wing of Max Domi, kind of the same as the top line, he could be interchanged, but I think that having John Tavares and William Nylander do their fancy schmancy stuff, having Max Domi there who can just be a little bit more defensive and be a little bit more reliable to be a little bit more grittier and stuff like that, I think that this line would be all right with having. Next, to my third line, I have Dakota Joshua at left wing, Scott Laughton at center, and then Nick Waugh or Roy at right wing. Top six is a little bit more predictable. The bottom six is a little less predictable. However, in a perfect world, I think that Scott Laughton would be fourth line center right now, but due to the fact that there is a shortage in third line centers across the league, and also kind of second line centers as well. If the past draft showed us anything, is that centers have become a hot commodity. So I have Scott Laughton right now as their third line center. Dakota Joshua, he was a really good third liner for Vancouver, and I can vouch for that because I saw him play a lot in Vancouver. Not in person, but on TV. He was gritty. He can throw big hits. He's big. And if there's one thing that the Brew Bay Leafs are loving to do, it is to be big and physical. And Joshua checks all of those boxes. Nick Roy or Waugh, I don't know if he's French Canadian or not. He was all right with Vegas. I only looked at his numbers, and the numbers looked all right. So he will be the fact that they got him from Vegas for Mitch Marner and that sign and trade stuff was more than any Leaf fan thought that they would get, me included. So having him on the third line doesn't really, it's not like, oh shoot, he was going to be this top line guy. No, unfortunately, no. That brings me to my fourth line, and I have Steven Lorentz at left wing, David Kampf as center, and then Bobby McMann as right wing. Just, I don't think there's much to really say about this line. Just, they're good, solid guys. They have the defensive mind in them. David Kampf and Bobby McMann are a little bit more on the older side. Steven Lorentz, actually, he's also kind of on the older side as well. So this is just a line that I think would be good if they just need to give the top 6 a rest, or top 9 for that matter, a rest. So that brings me into the extras, which is Michael Pezzetta and Kelly Yarncroke. I'm assuming that Nick Robertson doesn't have a contract or he's traded. I think that the relationship between Nick Robertson and the Toronto Maple Leafs has become very strained over the last year and a bit. He's going to arbitration this year, or in a few days more so. So he is, in my opinion, on his way out. So I made my roster without him really in it. And then last point, Cowan is going to be in the minors. Unless he has an extremely great camp and he is beating out like David Kampf or Bobby McMann, one of the older guys, and he, shows that he's good. However, if he is someone who is up with the team and he's in and out of the lineup, send him to the minors. He needs to play. He is a young guy. He has a bunch of potential right now, and if that potential is being wasted in the press box, I don't think me nor a lot of people are going to be that happy. So have him in the minors, get him playing, have him playing top minutes or whatever, and keep that confidence high, because the last thing you need is a young guy to lose his confidence. So that's my forwards. Those are my thoughts. Let's move on to the defense. On my top pair, I have Morgan Rielly at left and then Brandon Carlo at right. They were pretty alright, or they were good last season. The defense for the Toronto Maple Leafs is pretty much the same that it was last year. So I don't think that there's much explaining that has to do. The defense last year for the Maple Leafs was actually pretty good. So I don't think you really have to change that much. And Morgan Rielly, he's good. He's the longest tenured Leaf at the moment. He's aging. However, I think that he still has a season or two of good performance in him. Brandon Carlo, he is a little bit more on the defensive side, in my opinion. However, he was pretty good for Boston, and if the Maple Leafs know anything, is that if a good player is on Boston, you probably want them on your team because of history. So that brings me to my defense, or not my defense, my second pairing defensemen. Jake McCabe on the left with Chris Tanev on the right. These two top pairs, you can switch them out, or switch the second pair of Jake McCabe and Chris Tanev to the top pair, and then that top pair to the second pair. Point being is that this is a good top four, in my opinion. And McCabe and Chris Tanev were pretty good with each other last year when Jake McCabe got injured last year. people are like, who could replace him? Chris Tanev, but he is your partner, so you can't really replace a partner with him. Anyway, yeah, so that's my top 4. And then for my bottom pair, I have Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Simone Benoit. They're all right. And they're not like, they're just good if you just need some solid defense. I mean, Chris Tanev, he will put his body in front of any sort of puck. But this bottom pair, if you just need a good defense, they can be out there. Then my extra for the defense is Henry Thrun, who they got in the Ryan Reeves trade. He's been up and down in San Jose's system, but I think that with looking at the defense and how solid it is, having him as the extra wouldn't be that bad. But he is young, so you probably want him to be playing. However, I think that's just how it shakes out with him being as the extra. That brings me to the last position, which is goaltending. I have Anthony Stolarz as my starter, and I have Joseph Woll as the backup. The start of last season, it was a little bit more of a discussion of who's going to win the starting job. Anthony Stolarz proved kind of quickly that he is the starter. Joseph Woll, he will have his chance at being the starter as well some point in the future. However, for the time being, I think that Anthony Stolarz has proven himself to be a pretty good goalie as a starter, going from being the backup to Sergei Bobrovsky to now becoming the starter for the Maple Leafs. I don't think that that's that bad. And then Woll, he is a good goalie, period. I think that this is probably the most solid that the Leafs goaltending has been in, 2 decades or something like that. So that is my Toronto Maple Leafs roster. If I'm going to have a little pop-up to show you the whole breakdown in case I lost you somewhere in the video. And that brings me to a few news items I wanted to talk about. The verdict in that Hockey Canada World Juniors trial thing was announced the other day, and it's not guilty across the board for all 5 of the guys. It's going to be interesting to see what happens next, because there is that 30-day appeal period where the Crown can be like, we want this trial to be looked at again. However, we'll see what happens. And in the meantime, the question now becomes, can these guys return to the NHL? I've seen the discussion online throughout the whole thing has been pretty divided. So we'll have to see. The NHL says right now that they're ineligible to return, but they're doing their own investigation to see if they will return or not. So that is that. Now on to more positive things regarding Canadian hockey. We have the World Juniors staff for 2026 that it was announced this morning. As we already knew, Dale Hunter from the London Knights would be the head coach, and his 3 assistants and the goalie coach, video coach, and all that kind of stuff were announced, but I'm just going to talk about the 3 assistants that were announced. Misha Donskov, who is also part of the London Knights, and Brad Lorner, he is the head coach of Spokane, who made it to the Western Hockey League finals this past year. And also Gardner McDougall, who is the head coach of the Moncton Wildcats, who won the QMJHL this past year. So if one thing, looking at this list of coaches, they're winners. And they have been in winning situations. So I believe that these guys will be good for Team Canada. I think that the last 2 World Juniors have been disappointing, to say the least. Last year's World Juniors was just, in my opinion, it was a dumpster fire. So I am happy with the direction. It feels like a revenge tour a little bit. They're like, we're gonna get all the top guys. At least that's what it looks like. Please. So that is the coaching staff for this upcoming World Juniors for Team Canada. And in the next week, there's going to be the summer showcase where the US, Sweden, Finland, and Canada, and Czechia, I think those are the 5 countries will all kind of have games against each other. Players will be able to show what they're worth and show why they deserve to be on the team. So keep your eyes out for that. I think they stream the games that happen. I don't know where they stream those though, but I'll look into it and I'll let you guys know where you could potentially watch those. So that's going to be the video. Like it, comment, subscribe. Let me know, do you think I'm crazy for my Toronto Maple Leafs lineup? Do you think I need to readjust some things, or do you agree with me? Let me know down in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next one.